Have you ever loved someone who made you feel like you were losing your mind? You reach for them. They pull away. You open your heart. They go silent. You ask for more. They disappear. And you sit there wondering, what did I do wrong? Let me tell you something right now. You did nothing wrong. But the confusion eating you alive inside, I understand it completely. You have been fighting a battle no one can see. You have been trying to hold on to someone who keeps slipping through your fingers the moment you think you have them. You have been asking yourself 1,000 times, why am I not enough? Why does he pull away after intimacy? Why does she go cold when I get close? Why does it feel like I am loving a ghost? And the worst part? They look fine. They look completely fine without you. So you start questioning everything. You replay every moment trying to find the mistake. You shrink yourself down trying to be less. You walk on eggshells hoping that this time, maybe this time they will stay. I need you to listen to me very carefully because what I am about to tell you might completely change how you see this relationship. That person you are fighting for, they feel everything you feel. They feel the same fear, the same ache, the same desperate need to be understood, but something happened inside of them a long time ago. Something that made their brain build a wall so high they forgot there was ever a world on the other side. When they feel love, their nervous system does not register it as safety. It registers it as danger. The closer you get, the louder the alarm goes off inside their head. So they do the only thing they know how to do. They retreat, not because they do not love you, but because they do not know how to survive being loved. And this is where most people give up. They think if they would just try harder, if they just said the right thing, if they just understood them better, they could break through. But here is the truth nobody talks about. You cannot fix someone who does not believe they are broken. And that is not your job. But before you close this video and walk away, I want you to understand something else. Understanding why they act this way is not about accepting bad behavior. It is not about settling for less. It is not about staying in a relationship that drains you dry. It is about giving yourself the one thing you have been starving for, the truth. Because when you finally understand what is really happening inside their head, something magical happens. The confusion lifts. The anger softens. The heartbreak stays, but it becomes a heartbreak you can actually live with. And if you stay with me until the very end of this video, I am going to give you something worth more than 1,000 explanations. I'm going to tell you exactly what avoidants confess to their therapist in the safety of that room. The things they will never admit to you. Things that will make your heart break and heal at the same time. Things that will finally make you stop asking what you did wrong because the answer has never been about you. So if you have ever loved an avoidant, if you have ever felt like you were slowly disappearing while trying to hold on to someone who kept slipping away, this video was made for you. And I promise you the truth is coming. Now listen, this is where it gets real. I want you to hear what an avoidant actually says when they sit across from a therapist and finally feel safe enough to tell the truth. Because what they say in that room is nothing like what you have been hearing in your relationship. In that room, something inside them finally gives up pretending. And what comes out will change everything for you. They say, I knew what I was doing the entire time. Not fully at first, but slowly. In the quiet safety of that space, the truth surfaces. They admit that they felt you pulling away. They noticed the pain in your eyes. They heard the questions in your voice. They saw you shrinking yourself down, trying to fit into the small space they allowed. And they say nothing, because saying something would mean admitting they are hurting you. And admitting that would mean they have to look at themselves. And looking at themselves would mean accepting that something inside them is broken. So they stay silent, and you bleed quietly. But here is the part that will wreck you. They say, I felt everything you felt. I just could not let you know. They tell their therapist about the nights they stared at the ceiling thinking about you, the way their chest tightened when you smiled at them, the terrifying realization that they were falling for you and did not know how to stop the fall. They felt it every single moment. They just could not let you see it. Because here is what happens inside an avoidant when love gets too real. Their brain does not register it as something beautiful. It registers it as a threat, not a threat from you, a threat from themselves, from the possibility that they could want someone that much, that they could need someone that badly, that they could lose themselves completely if they let you in all the way. And that terror is bigger than their love for you. So they run, not because they do not care, but because caring too much feels like drowning. They sit in that therapist's office and they say, I push them away and I hate myself for it. I watch them trying so hard and I want to tell them it is okay. I want to hold them. I want to stay. But the moment I try, something inside me goes dark and I cannot explain it. I just know I have to get out. And then they say something that most people never hear. They say, I was taught very early that love was not safe. That if I let someone all the way in, they will eventually leave or hurt me. So I decided it was easier to leave first, to find reasons, to pull away before they could discover who I really am and decide I was not worth staying for. They chose rejection over vulnerability every single time because rejection protects them, but vulnerability could destroy them. And that is the wound they carry, not because they are bad people, but because somewhere along the way, someone they needed to trust taught them that being fully known was dangerous. So they built a version of themselves that looks fine alone, that performs independence, that acts like they do not need anyone. That makes you feel like you are the one who is too much. And they do this until someone comes along who makes them feel everything they have been running from. And then they panic, and then they retreat, and then they watch you from a distance hoping you will still be there when they are ready. But they never tell you that part, not out loud, not to your face, because saying it would make them human, and being human would make them vulnerable. And vulnerability is the one thing they cannot survive, so they bury it. They bury the love, the fear, the desperation to be chosen. They bury it all so deep they start believing it is not there, but it is there, burning underneath every cold text, every distance they create, every moment they disappear when you need them most. The love is real, the fear is stronger. That is what they admit in that room. That is what they will never tell you, and now you know. Here's the question that keeps you up at night. If they feel all of that, if they know what they are doing, if they are aware of the pain they are causing, then why can they never just say it to your face? Why do they have the words for a stranger in a therapy room but nothing for you? The answer lives inside something most people do not understand. It lives inside the way their brain was wired to survive. When an avoidant sits across from their therapist, something changes. The room is safe. The person is paid to not judge them. The walls do not judge. The ceiling does not reject. They can say anything in there and nothing will come back to hurt them. So slowly, carefully, the walls come down. But with you, it is different. With you, everything is at stake. When they look at you, they see possibility. They see the life they could have if they let themselves. They see the love they so desperately want but cannot figure out how to hold. And every time that vision gets too bright, something inside them panics. Not because they do not want it, but because they are terrified of what happens when they reach for it and it is not there. So they protect themselves the only way they know how. They stay silent. Because the moment they tell you the truth, it becomes real. It becomes something you can respond to. Something you can hold them to. Something that exists outside of their head where it feels manageable and contained. And they cannot handle that. They cannot handle you knowing how much you matter to them. Because what if you use it against them? What if you leave? What if you become another person who takes their vulnerability and turns it into a weapon? They learned early that opening up leads to pain. So they built their entire life around making sure it never happens again. And the cruelest part? They do not even realize they are doing it most of the time. It is not a choice they sit down and make. It is a reflex. A protection mechanism that fires off the second things start to feel too good. The second you get too close. The second the connection starts to feel like home. Their body does not celebrate safety the way yours does. Their body sounds the alarm. Their body tells them to run before they get burned again. And they listen every single time. That is why they can tell their therapist about the love they feel for you, but when you look them in the eyes and ask for more, they go quiet because that moment, that real moment with you, is not a therapy room. That is a battlefield where their worst fears could come true. They have been there before, in other relationships, with other people they loved, and those people left or hurt them or did not stay long enough to prove it was safe. So they decided love was the problem, not the people, the concept itself. And they have been running from it ever since. That is why they pull away when you cry. That is why they disappear when you need them most. That is why every time you get close, they find a reason to create distance, not because they do not love you, but because their nervous system is screaming at them that love is the thing that destroys you. And the tragedy is that they want to fight it. They want to be different. They want to stay. In that therapy room, they sometimes cry and say, I do not want to be this way. I want to be able to give them what they need. I want to stop sabotaging the one thing I really want. But the fear is stronger than the desire, and until they decide that the fear is worth facing, they will keep running. They will keep hurting you in ways they do not intend. They will keep watching you walk away, knowing they could have held on. Understanding this does not make it okay. It does not make the hurt disappear, but it does something more powerful than anything else right now. It gives you permission to stop blaming yourself, because you were never too much. You were never asking for too much. You were simply loving someone who has not yet learned that love does not have to be a threat, and that is not a failure you can fix. Now we come to the part that matters most. Everything up until now has been about them, understanding them, decoding them, figuring out the mystery of someone who seemed impossible to reach. But now it is time to talk about you, because here is what I need you to hear. You have spent so long trying to understand someone who could not even understand themselves. You have given so much energy to decoding a person who never gave you the map. And somewhere in that exhausting process, you forgot something incredibly important. You forgot yourself. You stopped asking if this relationship was good for you. You stopped checking in with your own heart and asking what you were actually getting out of this. You stopped noticing how small you had become just to keep someone who could not even meet you halfway. And that ends today. Not because they are bad people, not because they do not deserve love, but because you deserve to stop bleeding for someone who will not hold the wound. I need you to understand something about healing. Real healing does not come from finally getting through to an avoidant. Real healing does not come from them finally saying the words you have been waiting to hear. Real healing comes from the moment you look in the mirror and say, I am done waiting for someone to choose me. I am choosing myself. You cannot save them. No amount of patience will rewire their nervous system. No amount of love will teach them that closeness is safe. That lesson has to come from inside them, from a place you cannot reach, from a decision you cannot make for them. And they may never make it. That is the reality you have to accept. Not because you do not love them, but because your love was never enough to heal something they do not even believe exists. So what do you do now? You let go of the fantasy that one day they will wake up and suddenly be the person you needed them to be. The fantasy that if you just loved them a little harder, waited a little longer, explained yourself a little better, they would finally see you. That fantasy is keeping you trapped, and it is lying to you. The truth is simpler and harder at the same time. Some people can love you and still not be capable of showing up for you, not because they do not want to, but because they do not have the tools. And you cannot build someone a toolbox they are not willing to learn how to use. That is not your burden to carry. So here is what I want you to do. I want you to take everything you learned in this video and use it as armor, not to attack them, not to blame them, but to protect yourself from ever again losing yourself to someone who was never fully there. When you feel yourself starting to shrink, when you catch yourself walking on eggshells, when you notice yourself dimming your light just to make room for someone who refuses to glow beside you, you stop, you breathe, you remind yourself of the truth. They feel everything you feel. They just do not know how to stay. That is not your failure. That is their wound. And wounds heal slowly. Some wounds never heal at all. And you do not have to stand there waiting for a miracle that may never come. Your healing begins the moment you stop trying to save them and start saving yourself. Walk away from the version of them that only exists in therapy rooms. Walk away from the potential they never turned into presence. Walk away from the love that kept you hungry and exhausted and confused about your own worth. Walk towards someone who does not need a therapist to tell them how to love you. Walk towards someone whose nervous system celebrates your closeness instead of running from it. Walk towards someone who looks at you and says what they mean, who stays when things get hard, who does not need to be rescued from their own heart. You deserve to be met fully. You deserve to be chosen out loud. You deserve a love that does not hide in the shadows waiting for danger to pass. The moment you claim that for yourself is the moment this chapter closes and a new one begins.